Hi, welcome to Unwrapped. I'm Marc Summers, and today we're sampling chocolate in all of its forms. Now, when Columbus returned to Spain from the New World in 1502, he introduced many treasures to the court of King Ferdinand. Among them were cocoa beans, the source of all future chocolate and cocoa products. And one of the earliest ways Europeans enjoyed the bean was in drink form. So we're going to take a look at how one company is keeping that idea flowing.
While it may look like a regular cup of hot chocolate, this mug actually contains a special mix called drinking chocolate.
Our drinking chocolate is actual real morsels of chocolate that you literally melt into hot milk. So it makes this incredibly rich, decadent beverage.
While drinking chocolate has long been part of European culture, it's a fairly unknown concept to Americans.
As soon as people take a sip of drinking chocolate, they really understand that it is different. It's not hot chocolate. It really is like drinking a chocolate bar.
And it should be, because Schokinag drinking chocolate is 100% imported German chocolate. Schokinag began as a family-owned company in Germany in 1923. Today, the North American branch is the #2 importer of chocolate on the continent. And their drinking chocolate arrives at their Vancouver factory in a solid form. These microchips are smaller than regular chips and come in flavors such as dark, milk, and white chocolate. And once on site, they're blended together, creating different flavors.
For instance, in the triple chocolate, there's little pieces of milk chocolate, there's little pieces of extreme dark chocolate, and also little pieces of our semi-sweet chocolate.
Mixing chips is a simple yet delicate process, as too much friction will cause them to melt. To avoid this, chips go into a revolving tumbler that thoroughly mixes them before melting can occur. Then, the chips are bagged and placed into special tins. To make drinking chocolate, 3 tablespoons of Schokinag are added to a mug with a splash of milk. Next, chocolate and milk microwave for 30 seconds, just long enough to melt the chocolate. Then, the mug is filled with milk and returned to the microwave for 1 minute. Finally, the hot chocolate is ready to drink, but it doesn't have to be consumed hot.
It's not just rehydrating it like you do with the hot chocolate. But once you prepare it, you've added the milk in there, you can refrigerate it and it actually stays fine.
Schokinag produces over 10,000 tins of drinking chocolate a day. That's a lot of chocolate, but get this, some of it is actually good for you.
Our extreme dark chocolate, for example, is really high in antioxidants, so any of the darker chocolates are really actually health food.
But until it finds its way onto fad diets around the nation, Schokinag will continue to promote drinking chocolate one customer at a time.
I think it'll be the same thing as we saw in coffee, that once you have good coffee, there's just no way that you can return to an instant. You're hooked for life.
Welcome back to Unwrapped, where we're sampling some sweet imitations. Now, some snacks just can't be imitated. For instance, pizza wouldn't be right. But what would happen if pizza were made out of chocolate? Now that's singing a different tune. Check out how this slice is served up. Pizza and chocolate are 2 of the most popular foods in the United States. But what comes to mind if these 2 were combined into one?
They think that it's a crust with chocolate on top of it, or maybe chocolate with sauce on top of it.
At the Chocolate Pizza Company in Marcellus, New York, it's a little sweeter than that.
It's all chocolate and it's got an English toffee in it.
They've been making chocolate pie since 1988, and making each pie starts as usual with the crust, which is a chocolate and toffee combination. The toffee, whose recipe goes back to 1919, starts with water, Karo syrup, and sugar. After boiling for 40 minutes, butter adds into the bubbling mixture, a step that produces some interesting results.
I actually beat it until it rises up to the top of the pan. And then I punch it down again and wait for it to rise a second time before I pour.
Next, toffee pours onto aluminum sheets where it cools and hardens. Then, the candy breaks into pieces and grinds up in a food processor. Meanwhile, pizza makers are melting down and tempering 10-pound blocks of milk or dark chocolate.
After the blend reaches a smooth consistency, the chocolate and crushed toffee mix together, forming the crust. Next, toppings pile on, which are definitely more sweet than savory.
The chocolate pizza actually has pecans, walnuts, almonds in it, and white chocolate.
After the finished chocolate pizza cools, it's on to wrapping, labeling, and packaging in a familiar box.
They come in just a regular pizza box. Half the fun of giving these is because people think that you are giving them some cold, stale, old pizza.
The Chocolate Pizza Company is making over 1,000 pizzas every month, which cost between $3 and $30 depending on the size. And they're also delivering them nationwide. And in addition to the pies, they're also offering a special bucket of wings as an appetizer.
They are a rippled potato chip with peanut butter on top of them, dipped in chocolate. And we came up with those because our customer told us now that we had pizzas, we needed wings to go with them. So we developed the wings so we could have pizza and a bucket of wings.
Welcome back to Unwrapped, where we're sampling some delectable delights like pies, cakes, and other desserts that come out of the back of your favorite restaurants and coffee shops. But it doesn't mean that they're being made there. Let's visit a company that's actually doing most of the work.
For many people, dessert is the best part of any meal. But for the spreaders and drizzlers at Sweet Street in Reading, Pennsylvania, dessert is the only course.
We actually make 250,000 cakes, pies, or bars each and every day.
It's that love of cake and cream concoctions that motivated Sandy Solomon to start Sweet Street in 1978 with a line of cookies. Then she saw the light.
In 1981, I met a food broker who looked at me and said, "Frozen desserts is the future."
Sandy ran with the idea, and it paid off a few years later.
Out of nowhere, there became a real need for frozen foods to satisfy the needs of the restaurants who couldn't make everything themselves.
Today, 700 Sweet Street employees are making over 400 different desserts in their 250,000 square foot facility, all of which will be frozen, delivered, and served in popular eating spots.
We sell our product to just about every segment of the food service business: airlines, casual dining, your local country club, caterers, catering halls, cruise ship lines.
And one of Sweet Street's best-selling goodies is the peanut butter stack. And making it starts with mixing a rich fudge brownie batter. Next, pans are buttered, filled, and evenly spread before going into a very smart 6-layer oven.
An interesting and complicated elevator system that groups the product in a step formation, and essentially every 30 seconds will put a step in the oven.
Next, pans chill on a 2,000-foot cooling spiral and then really cool down in the minus 30-degree Fahrenheit freezer.
This layer is very thin, so it's very important when they take it out of the pan to make sure it's as cold as possible.
Chocolate icing, peanut butter crunch, and caramel layer on with a second fudge brownie sealing the top. And then it's back into the freezer. After 24 hours, Sweet Street artists spread on a second layer of icing and peanut butter. And finally, the very top gets a coating of milk chocolate chunks, honey roasted peanuts, and caramel.
We love a lot of different textures and visuals in our product. We want the smooth, the chewy, the creamy, the crunchy, the salty.
Sweet Street makes 5 million trays of peanut butter stack bars every year and hundreds of millions of other cakes, pies, and pastries. But no one really knows who they are or what they do. And that's exactly the way they like it.
From the very start, our concept was that we'd make a product so wonderful that the chefs would be proud offering it as if they made it themselves.
When some people need a coffee jolt, they don't want to wait for a pot of beans to brew. They want to go straight to the source. So check out this company that figured out a way to let people pop coffee beans like candy.
At Shot Coffee, they live and work by one simple motto.
Sleep is overrated.
And they've extended their caffeine kick beyond coffee.
Chocolates are a premium chocolate espresso bean product that has a boost of caffeine.
We wanted them to look different also, so we put a hard candy shell around the chocolate.
These little yellow candies, manufactured by Marich Confectionery in Hollister, California, pack a mean caffeine punch.
A 1 ounce pack of chocolates is about 2.5 cups of coffee worth of caffeine.
That's about 280 milligrams of caffeine per bag. And not only that, it's a hit you'll feel quicker than the average Joe.
I discovered from doctors that your gums actually absorb the caffeine faster than your stomach. So it's actually a very efficient delivery system.
Chocolates start with fresh roasted espresso beans that get an extra kick of cocoa before layers of premium dark chocolate are sprayed on in a panning machine. The chocolate-covered beans cool for 24 hours before getting their hard candy shell made up of layers of sugar. It's an element shock added to carry the yellow coloring, but it ended up having an added bonus.
The crunchiness of the candy shell masks some of the unpleasant crunch of the coffee bean.
After they get a coat of yellow color, chocolates move to the polishing stage, where they get shined up with a thin layer of carnauba wax. And then, onto packaging. The caffeinated candies are sold online or in bookstores, grocery stores, and coffee shops across the country.
There's a lot of life to grab, and you can't grab it while you're asleep. So caffeine, if that's going to help me grab more of life, then I'm going to be a caffeine user.
Today we are talking about one of my favorite subjects in the whole world, and that's chocolate. It's been a guilty pleasure all over the world for centuries, and over the years, it's been considered the food of the gods, the drink of royalty, and has been called everything from a noxious drug to a miracle cure. And from the beginning, it's been a confection that has gotten a lot of attention. Dark and creamy, sweet and smooth. No wonder early people believed chocolate to be of divine origin.
The Mayans and the Aztecs did consider it to be a food of the gods. And actually, Montezuma thought of it that it was some sort of magic elixir.
Americans love chocolate so much, each one of us eats almost 12 pounds of it every year. But believe it or not, it's a relatively new food for most of the world. Just a few hundred years ago, chocolate was a well-kept secret of the Aztecs. They used the beans from cacao trees to make a warm, spicy drink. Christopher Columbus brought a few beans back to Spain in 1502. Europeans turned hot chocolate into the sweet drink we know, but for many years it was too costly for all but the wealthy. Our beloved chocolate bar didn't take shape until the 1800s. Ever since, more and more of us have fallen for chocolate. But along with all the adoration, chocolate has taken a few knocks.
It's a myth that chocolate causes acne. Actually, no food causes acne. It's a myth that chocolate is high in caffeine. In a chocolate bar, there's about the same amount of caffeine as in a cup of decaffeinated coffee. And I think the biggest myth of all is that chocolate is not good for you.
Chocolate actually contains nutrients like iron, calcium, and protein, which is just another reason to indulge in America's favorite flavor. Not all chips are salty snacks. Bet you've never heard of molasses chips. They have been around, well, about 40 years at See's Candy, and we're going to discover the secret ingredient responsible for the success of this old-fashioned favorite. With a recipe dating back to 1949, these chips trade in salty for sweet.
Our molasses chips are pretty crispy and they're crunchy, and with the chocolate on top of them, it just makes it more fabulous to eat.
Inside their Los Angeles factory, See's makes more than 60 million molasses chips every year. One of the main ingredients is obviously molasses. See's uses 20,000 pounds of molasses a year in these chips. Along with butter, sugar, and corn syrup, there's another main ingredient responsible for the texture of the chips. Call it See's secret weapon. It's sodium bicarbonate, or baking soda that gives the chips their snap and their honeycomb center.
It's a chemical reaction that takes place that, like I say, incorporates, expands, and puts holes, little tiny pinholes in our candy that's very unique to our chip.
After the ingredients cook, the sticky mix pours out at a scalding 295 degrees Fahrenheit. Once it cools, a kneading machine folds and flattens the 100-pound batch, popping any air bubbles.
It lets the air escape and also incorporates air so that there's just enough air to make those little holes in the candy.
Then it's off to the puller for more exercise. The stretching motion adds air into the candy and releases gas from the sodium bicarbonate. The huge doughy blob rides a conveyor to a series of rollers that flatten the massive sticky mix. A chip former scores the candy into 500 chips per minute. Then the chips enter the enrobing room. They take their spot on the final conveyor belt, 300 feet long.
We call them conditioning tunnels. The more feet you have, the more time you have to be able to bring the temperature down.
That's important because this is where the chips ride into the enrober like a chocolate shower. And they need time to cool down before their second coat. Then the finishing touch is added.
Each piece of candy has its own unique design. We use an air blow to blow off the chocolate so when the consumer gets that chip and they know it's a See's chip.
In 1 year, 800,000 pounds of chocolate covers these candies. See's molasses chips are 60% chocolate and 100% delicious.